There is not a standard system for coding. The codes that you use and the process that you use will depend on your research question, which makes it often confusing and makes you feel like you don't know what you're doing. But again, this is where elevating your intuition to logic really helps. If you have a long, extended passage and people are talking about something that you could code multiple ways. You could code some text on whether it's emotional or whether it's descriptive of a particular situation, on sequence or frequency. All of the options about how you would interpret what somebody says, those options are great to think about, but it's important to keep your research questions in mind. Each option for coding, for summarizing a statement or summarizing a passage or summarizing visual data is not equally important to your research question. If somebody is describing an experience, and the actual description of that experience. When I was a child, I did something with my family that was really exciting. You could code that very short amount of information as memory. You could code that short amount of information as the actual sequence of events of what happened. So you want to know your information is about, tell me about your experience in this particular historical moment. And you're literally coding that memory or that passage as event 1 happened, event 2 happened, event 3 happened, then memory doesn't really matter as much as the actual sequencing of events that they're telling you or the events themselves that they tell you about. So it depends on what are the guiding concerns of your research. And sometimes you might code one passage multiple ways because it strikes you as important in multiple ways. And that's completely fine because that's your first pass coding. Then later you're going to check back in. Let's say you've coded 2, 3, 4 times. Later you're going to come back to those codes and say, what was really important here and how does it inform what's happening in other parts of my analysis? And then you kind of clean it a bit. You clean up your ideas about what's important about that. This is why qualitative work is really subjective. It is why claims to representativeness and reliability and generalizability, the same kinds of standards used in quantitative data, are truly almost not even useful in qualitative data, but they do systematically, qualitatively different kinds of work than quantitative data. And as long as your memo writing is thorough, today I noticed emotion. Today I was noticing how people were inconsistent with their memories. Today I was noticing, certain things. When you're thorough with your memo writing, which is documenting how the coding process is going and how your codes fit together, then you can be very clear with people who are reading your work about what did you do to be thorough and transparent and reliable in your coding process. Were you honest with your data in the way that you say that you were? So the concerns of, am I doing it right? It's almost impossible to answer that except to say that, are you doing it thoroughly? Are you taking notes about what you're doing? Are you constantly checking in with your research question and with the lit review that helped you devise this whole agenda in the first place? That will really help you be sure that you're answering your question. That's what you're trying to do with your coding, answering a question or set of questions.